This is the
It's the
Lekker
Lekker
Rugby
Pod,
Pod
the first Afrikaans English rugby
with
pod in
Harry
history,
Jones and
as
MW
Ingo pointed
Welman.
out to us on Saturday when we were having a beer at Hazelwood. How's it, Harry?
How's it, man? I'm finally got my voice back. That was absolutely madness. Never seen a more emotional 50,000 group therapy session in my life. There was a sprinkling of maybe 12, 14, 15 Irishmen were not on the field. So it was full-blooded Loftus. I imagine from where you live, now that I've actually met you and had breakfast with you and had a beer with you, is you could probably hear the roar of the stadium from where you live, right?
I can. Actually, I hear it quite often, and I was quite jealous, and I was a little bit upset at certain authority figures in South African rugby that I wasn't be able to attend. So I had to sit in my lounge all on my own sim and, wipe the tears away when the anthem was played. What an emotional anthem. How was that being at Loftus? How did that feel?
Yeah, so we locked, it was the three of us who locked into basically our front row, sung our hearts out, every word louder than the previous word. And then when, the singer actually just gave the mic to the audience, I never heard a better song. Forget that it's an anthem, just singing together. It was like you're back in church or something. It was like people were crying, and all around us there were these big oaks pretending not to cry, but then it was too much. You couldn't pretend anymore because it was coming down your cheeks. I think that emotional boost, created the Lekkerback try. And then I think there was also like a lull. We couldn't sustain the energy. It was too much. Drickus, Sia, anthem, it just was amazing. But I would say there was true emotion running throughout that whole crowd. There was it's an awkward rivalry, man. We don't know how to be rivals yet. We're still figuring it out. It's like we're like two contestants that haven't got an old rivalry. This was never really a rivalry. And now it's got this thing, but both of our cultures are really good at taking offense and claiming the grievance victim. So it's very hard to put a glove on us. The minute you say one thing wrong, it's like, oh, don't you remember that's a horrible part of our history? And like, so we don't know how to insult each other.
Like the Rassie song. That's all about emotions, and, we don't respect the heritage and whatever. And that's something I wanted to talk to you about specifically. You mentioned the fact that the songs the anthem, whatever song it was sung so well, and Rassie was sung quite often as well. South Africans are not known to be singing crowds, for that matter. We don't like singing that much. We're a bit shy, like you said, always a bit self-deprecating. Don't like being made to look like a fool. So I never sing out loud because I know I can't sing to save the life of me. But the point is that actually something turned on. And I see there's a petition going around that lady that sang the anthem should sing it forever, because she just sort of gets it,
What a voice, but more than that, what a soul it came through. She was, top of her game. She knew how to play the crowd. She knew exactly when to stop and let the crowd take over. I thought that was humble and also really confident at the same time. That was a great tone setting. By the way, the Ireland, that thing. So apparently in the high school that Ringo went to, Janssen, that was their song, but they were saying Janssen. That was actually, so there was a contingent of people who were singing that song, but doing the same thing as the Rassie Zombies song. They were changing it to a mid-rand high school.
Well, Afrikaans music is well known for ripping off overseas tunes and adding Afrikaans words to it, so nothing new there. Listen, we'll talk about the Springboks just now a bit more. Oh, sorry, before I go there, I wanted to ask you something else. You sat in the Eastern Pavilion, didn't you?
Yeah, we were high above the field, which actually affords you, like what you got to sit in your living room and actually deconstruct the match, and you knew exactly what's going on. You could, we were basically just getting vibe. But one good thing about being in the stands like that is you can really see the backfield configuration. You can see how the Irish midfield was matching up against the Boks midfield. You can see that Damien was not used as the first strike runner anymore. It was Jesse taking the ball up, with Andre making pinpoint passes to Damien or skipping him. And I think the number of exchanges between Boks, 10 meters plus, getting to second receivers was an all-time high. It must have been, I don't know, a decade since we've seen that kind of rugby. And it put a lot of stress on ruck cleaners. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but I know people got excited about it, but it's also a very high intensity kind of rugby.
Risky, which we'll talk about, just like you
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
What reason I asked you about the Eastern Pavilion, you mentioned a couple of Irish supporters sprinkled around you. Sitting on the Eastern Stand at Loftus Versfeld is like sitting in a war zone, especially if you're a visiting team. Ask any Western Province or Stormer supporter. Did you experience any of that? How was it nearly?
No, there was not even enough of them to be like, actually, people just took pity. People were very nice to the Irish. I think the two in a section of 200, they were treated like dignitaries, like VIPs. People were handing them biltong, drinks, brandy, coke, hugging them. No, anyone who came to Loftus expecting some kind of stereotype came away probably thinking, wow, there's some really nice people. It was just all about positivity for the Boks. It wasn't really nothing anti-Irish.
Yeah, I never picked that up as well. You said yourself when we were having a beer in Hazelwood on Saturday, the vibe was just amazing. Nah? And I want to talk about this quickly, as you mentioned in your article for the Raw, the question of emotional hedging. I love that term. When you said it to me on Saturday, I knew immediately what you were referring to. I understood it instinctively. And when I read your article, and I'm going to put the link in the description down below, it just resonated with me. And that's a South African thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And what's funny is just kind of the look of the guy. It was like, it wasn't the thing you expected come out of his mouth, He was just a big, burly, ex-prop at a table full of props. And yeah, we all just kind of had that same feeling of, are we getting our hopes up too high? We're building it up too much. But at the same time, there was this pent-up frustration that needed to actually be solved. It had to be solved. I don't know if it's rectified. I'm not sure you can rectify in sports. There's always a next game. But there's the idea of like, can we just get them to engage in a field of battle of annihilation? Can we meet on the plane in the field where we kill you or you kill us? Can we just do that? Don't back out of the scrum. They did that all first half. Don't straddle the ruck. Did that first 40. Can we get you in a place and time where it's just you against me and it's who's stronger, who's gonna each other up? And that scrum was the culmination of all that emotional hedging, all that, back and forth, scarring tissue. And then it was finally like, oh, we are just going to take you to the house. We're going to scrum you into the East Pavilion.
Oh, I saw the Earth's rotation reversed after that scrum. I don't know if you saw the little tweet.
I got so lucky because I said to Ringo next to me, I said, hey, Rian, I'm going to actually film this thing. I think it's going to be a big scrum. And, it was like, nah, because the ref's not letting it, come to a fruition. He doesn't want to ping anybody. And I just caught it perfectly, put it up there. And I don't know what's 300,000 views already. Yeah. And it was because I captured the guy standing up in front of me at the moment where his head comes up, and it was that release, It was the only time he stood up.
Yeah, I saw that. What a moment! That was incredible. But listen, we're digressing. We want to talk about all the other games quickly. And it was a weekend of debutants in terms of coaches and in terms of players. Almost a new generation after the World Cup. No, that's like new coaches for Australia. Argentina, All Blacks, lots of things that need to be talked about. And I want to talk about Australia quickly. Firstly, before we move to the All Blacks, I know the game was played second, but Joe Schmidt, he seems to be the man for the moment. He seems to know what Australia needs, and he seems to know what to do with what Australia has at the moment and how to turn things around.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I follow Australian rugby very closely, and I wrote early on before Eddie was ever hired that it would be the worst decision they'd ever make. And it wasn't because Eddie Jones is a bad coach. It was because Australia needs something very different right now. Rugby is embattled in Australia. It's losing the war between the codes. So if you had someone who almost fits the description of how you like to describe yourself, MW, Joe would be it. He under promises, over delivers in every job he's ever had. He has a school teacher background. He's proud of his teacher background, and he loves to take people and say, I'm giving you 6 or 7 tests to prove yourself. Don't feel like because you stuff up one thing, you're out, So when he takes Noah Losio at 10 or Tom Liner, he's going to actually work with him and develop the Sexton-esque qualities he wants. He's not going to have you miss one kick, you're out, like we do in South Africa all the time on fly-off, like, you're the worst, you're out, And so Joe's going to be steady Schmidt. The question is, what would he bring and would it work against Wales? Because Wales under Gatland is notoriously good at making you play worse than you are. And so it was kind of kind of a snake pit. You wondered, but then Australia's on top on the scrums. I think they monstered Wales in the scrums.
Yeah.
They clearly, until Wainwright went off, there was some parity there, but I think at the end they won the breakdown against pretty good breakdown operators. I think you would say 25-16 following a 40-6 hammering in the World Cup is good return for your money. I think Joe Schmidt's, I think he said something like the result, but lots to work on. Perfect. Just a perfect tone. Not Eddie swaggering and, saying you're going to smash and grab the World Cup. Just work on it. Yeah.
Or being offended. Don't be a smart ass, mate.
I just don't think Joe wants a lot of drama in pressers. So I think that's good for Australia, because you saw that in the day after in Australian newspapers, rugby union was on the front page of sports. And it was just a good vibe. He had good word plays with the word Schmidt. It was a happy feeling. Now, a week's a long time in rugby. Just like, we could look at Durban now and kind of go, what's going to happen next? Wales will probably have some adaptation, and Australia has now big shoes to look up to fill. I'd say the one guy that comes out with the most credit was Tom Wright at 15. He scored a wonder try. It was one of those tries of the weekend. So that's good news for them, because Tom Wright's always been a guy a little bit like James Lowe did for Ireland. He'll win the game for you and lose the game for you. He'll make a try, he'll give you a try. But Tom Wright was impeccable all Super Rugby. He was the best outside back in Australia. Cut out all the silly, errors, and he really he performed. So I'm really happy for him.
The nice thing about that try that he scored was it was outside of the set pattern of doing things in a certain way and whatever, and it allowed a bit of a flourish there, a bit of individual talent to come to the fore. Now, I wasn't sure if Schmidt would like that, Joe would like that, but it seems that he did like that, and he wants them to still be able to play the moment as well.
Yeah, it's a bit like those coaches that you do something wrong, but it turns out right, where they go, no, yes, and take credit for it. Joe does like things to go a certain way. That's true. But there's an old saying that your 15 is really the personality. You look at coaches and who they pick at 15. It typically is a really good Rorschach test of who they are. You can see the Willy in Rassie. You can see how these people, translate. So I think there's a part of Joe that is a little bit cheeky and does like that. And I think but he wants it to come from the back, from the counter, from the guy who's watching the whole game, all game, and finds the crease. That is where you want it from. You don't want your 10 doing that. You don't want your 9 sniping too much. You want your 15 to read the game, and good on Tom. It broke the game wide open, and it made the whole thing look a lot better. On Wales, I will say this. Warren is trying to do a very difficult thing. He's picking a very young team sometimes. He's trying to bet in a system. I think he's the kind of guy, I don't really enjoy him as a personality, but he knows what he's doing. And he might look at it as a 3-year cycle. He's not looking at this season. This season is just rebuild.
But the thing with Gatland is that he's not picking a consistent team. He keeps chopping and changing. There's no time to settle anything down. Get the whatever he wants to whatever way he wants to play. It's not getting settled. Every week there's a new guy running up in some position. Does he even know who his best team is, for that matter?
No, the whole thing is preseason. It's like an NFL preseason training camp. He's just running players through there. He's got maybe 4 or 5 that are nailed on. The rest, he's just taking a look at them, seeing how they do, enjoying it. No one's calling for his head. He could probably lose, I don't know, 6, 7 in a row. No one's going to call for his head.
He's lost 8 now in a row since the quarterfinal of the World Cup. You honestly think that there's no pressure on him in terms of being, taking his stuff and going? No.
In Wales, so Wales believes in Warren Gatland in a way that no other rugby country believes in a figure. He's just got that kind of credibility forever. So could he lose every match of this season and not have some pressure? No, he would. I'm just saying he could drop quite a few. He could drop 5 or 6 in a row, as long as he's competitive. And he was competitive in the first one in Australia. So he will say, no, it's progress. And people will say, okay, maybe.
Yeah, well, they did better in Australia than they did at Twickenham, that's for sure.
Exactly. That's it. He'll call it progress. He's very good at politics, Warren.
Yeah, sure. You know what? The highlight for me, and I watched the game. The moment we looked up at the TV, the one guy accidentally headbutted his teammate. That was the highlight of the Wales side for me.
Yeah, we talked about how if you really player safety is number one, you should card that. Because
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who it
exactly.
was against. It's dangerous.
On that issue, the ref should have got a red card on Saturday for Casey's, because Casey hit his head against the ref's knee like Willie did the other day.
That's been a lot of rubbish too. There's a thing about sizes in rugby. We love the mismatch, but there's also sometimes when a big guy, really big guy, like Snyman's the biggest guy you could possibly have, and the smallest guy in rugby is Craig Casey. So when those two collide, if it's still a proper tackle, really low for a 2.06 meter guy, and he hits the tiny guy, bad things going to happen. And, you don't walk around too much around Loftus without realizing that the ground, and I played in Pretoria before, and I remember thinking, but we're playing on the road. Is this a street? Like, this is not, this is not a proper field. So when you have those two combinations, like it's a normal tackle. You got to finish your tackle. People dummy, ref says it's not completed. You had a point in the game where you have to finish the tackle. So Snyman finished Casey. I think if that tackle is on a soft field in New Zealand, I think Craig Casey is actually a little bit better off. But I also think anytime Snyman gets a number 9 and really proper lines him up, it's going to be like that.
Well, the game that matters to me, most to me after the Springboks one, obviously, is the one in New Zealand. We all wanted to know what Scott Robertson was going to be able to do. And I mean, he just squeaked through. Huh? That was a close one.
I like how Razor fronts up in pressers, though. I mean, he gets very technical. He goes through it. He, had a bit of a whine on speed of game. But hey, that's England's thing. England will slow down a game, and they'll do it from set piece to set piece. I would say you're looking at, a coach that's had the team. Warthwick's had the team for, quite a bit, gone through the wars. They believe in him. He knows what they're good at. He knows what they're not good at. If Marcus Smith nails a couple of kicks, this thing is a lot more interesting. I would think that New Zealand comes away from that match internally very cross, not happy, work their socks off this week. They'll view it as a loss. They'll view it as disgraceful, embarrassing. Sure, it's a win, but they're not going to think like that. England probably feels pretty good, but also frustrated about, a famous victory escaping them. They had the perfect lineup. They had everything just go their way. And I just think, what New Zealand did is they kind of wore them down. I thought they had big ball carriers, kind of took the breakdown over, a little bit like the Bok game. And that, some ebbs and flows in the breakdown.
I think that stood out for me. You mentioned it before. Don't they have any better props than the one Joe Marler and Dan Cole? And that came to the fore. They were just dominated in the scrums. That's where the game, I think, was won and lost.
Yeah, it's like New Zealand is a proper scrumming team. They showed that in the quarterfinal against Ireland. That's how they won that match. They are using their scrum as a weapon again, the way they should. Kiwi scrums should be good. They got 2 proper front rows. Definitely. You'd think that England would have been able to develop a 25-year-old, a 28-year-old prop, but they just keep throwing out the deep 30s guys, and at some point, Dan Cole is giving everything he's got. So I'm not even criticizing the man. I actually don't like to criticize players that much. He's giving everything he has, but it doesn't seem like he's flexible in his core enough. On the second shove, if you've got him, you've got him. He has no recovery like Ox. Yeah, he's in trouble.
And Damon McKenzie, that to me was the pivotal position. I honestly didn't think he played that well for me. I think he did well, but not that well. I mean, I thought he could do better. I mean, New Zealand had to pick New Zealand-based players. That makes a difference. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, it wasn't authoritative. I think the Razor game plan, the Crusader type game plan requires a proper 10 who plays, like Richie Mo'unga. They had 31 kicks, I think, 33 kicks maybe. But it didn't seem like he was putting the game on a swivel on his side. It seemed like it was a reactive. I do like Damien McKenzie as a playmaker. He's a bit like Willie LaRue in that he's, going to find holes no one else can find. He'll throw some miracle 50-50s. But I think a game like that, which was very much akin to the semifinal in the World Cup, England was playing that kind of game. You kind of needed more of the Pollard type, the Owen Farrell.
Yeah, I want to talk about Pollard just now. That's quite an interesting thing to talk about. Yeah, but I think Marcus Smith cost England the game, and he almost won them the game as well. I think that guy maybe shouldn't be, entrusted with the tee. Get someone else to kick the post. But that guy made breaks and delayed passes and stuff that just, split New Zealand open a little bit, don't you think?
I think the whole world in rugby is struggles between these two archetypes of number 10. You have the playmaker 10, and you think that over time, over 6 games, there's enough plus to cancel out the minus of goal kicking. Then you have the goal kickers extraordinaire, but they maybe struggle in general play. But if they start to miss even 2 or 3 kicks, you go, what's the point then? If you're going to miss kicks, then I'll just get the guy who has more playmaking.
Yeah.
So England's got that. England's got that issue between George Ford, for example, and Marcus Smith, Finn Smith, the same thing. I think you could see New Zealand as always being in that argument. Always. There's always an argument between a Bowden Barrett who misses too much at poles, but gives you other things, against a more conventional type of 10. So I'm not going to solve England's problems for them. I know that they're your team. You said we a week ago.
You remind me. I came close though. I got so much flack over that over the weekend. Who's this we now? Since when is England we? I heard that. No, I heard it often.
So I think they've put themselves in a weird position for about 7 or 8 years. And I thought when Borthwick came in, he would make things more clear, but he kind of inherited the Eddie situation, and then he keeps digging a hole. So we still don't know on that one position what it is England wants to do. We just don't know. And they seem to vacillate back and forth between the Marcus, the George Ford type, and Owen Farrell when he comes back probably.
One thing we did see that's definitely coming to the fore now is that rush defense now under Felix Jones. England seems to have embraced it now. They seem to sort of, got it sorted. I think New Zealand struggle against that a bit.
They have for a long time now. All Blacks really struggle with that. They don't face it in Super Rugby that much. It's interesting. Everyone wants to say, the old timers want to say, play flat to the line. It's exactly what you should not do against a rush. You have to take the ball pretty deep, and you go down, and then you go deeper, another layer sometimes, until you can get outside it. And it's the outside that you see the holes, just like the Boks did against Ireland, who played a modified rush, and then Ireland did the same thing back. You do kicks, you do kick through, kick over, but New Zealand is sort of stubborn in that they have this belief that if we just keep playing Kiwi ball, we will crack it. And they're looking for those offloads, those chicken wings, those miracle balls. And I got to say, it's really frustrating to watch on a rugby sense, even though they're our greatest rivals. It's frustrating to see them not able to solve that. They just seem stubbornly wedded to this idea that we're going to crack it when you really have to go around it.
You what's the word? Your under Goldman just hung out there when you said they're still our biggest rivals. There was this big debate whether it should be Ireland or not. We all know it's still the All Blacks. Make no mistake. Yeah,
it's the All Blacks because it's old, and rivalries are about ancient beasts and grievances. They're about that wonderful respect where you almost sanctify your opponent, like you almost revere them. And they're All Blacks. I revere. I don't like people talking shit about All Blacks. But then it's like we can talk shit about, but not you. That kind of thing. Like two brothers. The 1 and 2, 2 and 1, 1 and 2 for 120 years. No one even comes close on an accumulated ranking process on number of players that end up going to other countries and become stars. There's no question. There's not any great Irish players coming down to the Southern Hemisphere and becoming household names, but there's plenty of New Zealanders playing in Ireland. So I think that's all true. But there's a space in rugby for new rivalries, and I love the new rivalry developing. It's just awkward still. It's like a guy who fights weird. You keep getting an elbow in your eye. You're trying to play like proper boxing, and you keep getting dirty boxing. We don't know how to put a glove on each other, and they had this awkward 1-loss record against us for recently. But New Zealand is always the one I'm still watching on a basis of saying who's really the best, who's going to be the best in 2027 in the World Cup. My examination starts and ends in New Zealand. That's always the one where I think in the end, come finals time, New Zealand will be there.
Right, let's move on to the game that mattered. All the others are just fluff. The one that you walked to amongst the people here at Loftus. You joined in the throng. You stood in the queue for a beer. You saw the preachers and the candle makers and the
rugby dominie.
Yeah, the butchers and the
That
candlestick.
guy actually turns out to be
Everybody.
an accounting teacher.
Oh, is it? That sort of that sounds good. Sounds right. Yeah, it sounds right.
Some guy pops on, he goes, "Oh, that's my accountancy teacher. He's the coolest guy ever."
Yeah, no, that's the point I'm trying to make here is that we were all wondering what Tony Brown's going to bring to the party, and we saw it now. Sia running over a centre, and Peter Steph de Tooy being a wing, and little things like that. Number one, what did you think of this new pattern?
Yeah, it's wide to wide. So you could see in the number, I think, who was it? The Pirate Rugby pod, our friends there put out a nice stat, which talked about, showed like multiples. I think it was twice as much passes thrown in this one match as normal, that the normative had changed. You looked at a guy like Damien Delende, 2 or 3 passes per match, suddenly 12, including offloads. He has that in his game. He's always had that in his game, by the way. He was just playing a role. People said, be crash ball. He's a crash ball, but he can do that. There was a lot more shifting of points of attack. There was more quick. Interestingly, though, if you're going to play Tony Brown-ish, then you got to have quicker ball at the ruck. And Ireland had the quicker ball substantially. It was, I think, 46 to 33% of rucks under 3 seconds, that sort of golden magic. Sometimes that's thrown off because when you're doing box kicks, you slow it down on purpose. You should almost take out the box kicks and just compare rucks that you're trying to make quick. But they had the quicker ruck. In other words, we didn't spoil their ruck as much as they spoiled ours. So Tony would have been upset about that. And what we would say to Tony is, so you're trying to have guys who never played this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, numbers 1 through 5 in your pack have to get about 20 meters more east or west than they had to before. So post phase 3, we looked very bad. Phases 1, 2, 3, we looked brilliant. Starter plays. Jesse Creel was having space on phase 1, phase 2. A couple of offloads gone to hand. There would have been 2 more tries easily. I think there were 9 line breaks, more than Ireland had, more points per 22. I think all those things are good, but you also would say, geez, it's a lot required of the cleaners to resource the ruck. It's so far away from phase to phase.
I saw an interesting stat just now, and I want to talk to you about, you said we struggle in the breakdowns, and that means Quagga comes into the picture. But before we do that, an interesting stat I saw is the loss risk percentage. Now, I never even knew there was such a stat. But now I know what it is. It's when you attack and you lose possession. South Africa used to be one of the best in the world. We lose about 15% of that. But on Saturday, we lost 24% of that. And Australia was the worst in the world up till now, and that was only 20%. So this high risk, high reward thing is definitely coming into play here.
Actually, yeah, South Africa had the best metric on that. It's kind of a made-up metric, but I know what they're trying to achieve, and there's probably no way to do it. But I know what you're saying. It's the problem of the lost ball. That is the central looming thing. If you're a coach in rugby, what you're always worried about most, not on schools level sometimes, but on the test level, is when I lose my ball, where is it? So when I get turned over, where is that and who's around? And that is always the most dangerous thing. And so Springbok mentality from way back has always been, that's the worst thing. We'll structure everything around that. That's when the king gets shot. That's when you've invaded our castle. You got over the moats. So we're not going to do that. We don't really care if you say it's boring, because we know that in the end, that wins better in big matches, especially knockouts. Joe Schmidt has always ascribed to that theory. In fact, that's what Ireland got tired of in the end and said, no, we want to have more risk, please, We want to concede more tries because we also want to make more tries. We want to try for more aces on our first serve, so we'll have more double faults. But that's okay. Now, it is fine as long as your margin stays the same. Rassie has said, and maybe this was always the plan, maybe it's always been a year behind because of COVID, or maybe 2, but I want to evolve the attack so where we can bury people. We can actually run a score up. We can not just win by one. We want to get a 2-year, 3-year period where we're like the All Blacks from 2011, 2015, where we're viewed as the best team of all time. That is what Rassie wants. So I think it's a statement of confidence now. They say, now we're okay with putting Peter Steff on the wings, having Sia run the trams. We're okay with having ruck number 8 really far away from ruck number 6, but because we trust in our facilities to handle the counter. There's not a worse team to try it against than Ireland, maybe All Blacks. So I kind of think they would have gone away thinking, okay, so it didn't get hurt too bad. It was 3 tries to 3, sure. But, the Boks had that game, had Pollard made his kicks, which were on the back of breaks and multi-phase attacks. We won those rights to penalties, right? We're deep in there. We didn't go to the corner. We just take our 3. That's how you build a scoreboard pressure. Score would have been 33-22, I think, if everyone makes their kicks. We'll let Andre miss one on purpose, and it's like 2 out of 3. It's a 33-22 game, and we're all looking, feeling better. So I think it's a process. It's just the second match of the year. And the question becomes, do we revert to type because we just want to win? Or do we keep trying to do this thing where we're more at risk to concede tries that Ninabe would have never allowed, but we want the Tony. We want to win the Tony. So what I've said is, okay, rectification done, check. Now we need rectification. So if we're going to get there to help our Lekker backs when they're all alone, we're going to have our big boys be extremely lean and mean, because it just takes a lot to get, 120 kg guy from side to side.
Well, that's to me raises a question. You said, it worked. Yeah, against Ireland, it worked. Yeah, no, we're all happy about that. How much of that success can be ascribed to the fact that Ireland didn't know what to expect? I mean, we saw a little bit of it against Wales, but not really to the extent that we saw on Saturday.
The first try looked like that, right? There's a beautiful scene of James Lowe coming over to make sure the Lekker back KLA dots down, and you can tell he's already looking at his teammates going, what just happened? Where was the fold?
I saw that.
Why didn't we fold early? He immediately went into problem-solving mode, which I like, by the way. The Irish do not panic. They didn't panic at all. And that cauldron, every other team besides All Blacks and Ireland folds and gets stampeded. I promise you, the stampede was on. They didn't get stampeded because they adjusted. They were much harder on the ruck on phase 2 and 3 than on phase 1. They built pressure. Josh van der Fleer stayed out of rucks until it was time. He was a little bit like Flo or McCall. He was picking his times. They would do feints. They would fake to go over the ball. And they did something which was the double straddle, where on breakdown, the people on sort of pillar post area, they would actually plant their foot, and that's what the referee saw. And the ref could only look at one thing at a time. So he saw that Josh had planted his foot on the right side of it, but then his other foot went beyond the ruck into Faf space. So a lot of times Faf was getting ragged ball, and when he was trying to go away from Josh, then Ty Byrne was on the other side. So you had double straddles. We started looking at that, and I went back and actually watched it, and it was a design for 40 minutes. And what should have been a 21-9 halftime lead, 21-8, became a 13-8. Kept him in the game. When Bomb Squad came on, then Marku and RG and the boys just smashed into those guys. And then it made the ref make a call, because it was obvious, just on this loud try, obvious that they were playing funny games at the ruck. They were not treating the ruck like a ruck. And so that's how Ireland adapted. And they just decided, okay, so there's too much space on the wings because of the Tony Brown attacks. We're going to cut it at source. And you almost saw Ireland play Bok ball and Springboks play, I hate to say it, but All Black ball.
Or Japan ball.
Right? It was funny. I was like, what's happening here? And it did look like it was a design. I liked it. I'm going to say this. I think we differ on this. I think Andre Pollard played really well in general play. I thought he ignited the backline really well. He just didn't make his kicks. And the thing is, if you're Andre Pollard, you miss your kicks. It's almost like, what's the point?
I think, my honest opinion, you said we differ on this, and we do. And I think Rugby agrees with me a little bit, which I revere Rugby.
So then you win.
If Rugby says it's like that, it's like that. I don't care what you say. What he said was, Andre doesn't have the soft hands that you need for this kind of a game plan, number one. Number two, Andre he's typically a sub 80% place kicker. He was metronomic in the World Cup, and we got used to them, not missing anything. Just reverting back a little bit to Andre. And also the fact that Andre wasn't really shaping up the way we expected him to do, especially in terms of this game plan. Maybe put a bit of pressure on him mentally, and that's maybe why he started missing a couple of things. And I think the question is long term, is Andre the right kind of player for this, going forward? Is Mani, even for that matter, not a better player? And definitely is Sasha not the right kind of player for this, because he can defend, he's got soft hands, he can attack the gain line, can do anything you want to, more than Andre can, and he can kick at posts.
The solution is obvious. We tell Andre, you only play World Cups, so relax for 3 years.
Semi-finals upwards. The point is that I'm asking the question, we can't lose the series anymore. So the rectification is now put aside. Can we experiment? Are we going to change a little bit? Are we going to revert back to a little bit of an older game plan? Are we going to see Sasha maybe starting the game? What do you expect there?
I think Ireland can get better, so I don't think anyone's going to get too cheeky here. I think Osborne could have played better. He finished well, but he started badly. I think you can look at their midfield and say Bondi Aki is going to be breathing fire in Durban. So I think Boks will say, no, I mean, like, if you just put a couple of those players play a little bit better and fix the scrum, Ireland's right back in it. So I think it's going to be continuity. I don't expect they'll change. And sometimes this is a bad thing. Clearly, the Kwagga thing didn't work. It didn't work because he got thoroughly outplayed by Caelan Doris. There was no other Springbok that was thoroughly outplayed by an Irish player. That was it. That was the one. And you think, well, just one. No, but it was a big deal because there were 4 or 5 restarts that went to Kwagga. He dropped 2, and he actually took the wrong direction on the 3rd, so he got isolated. He didn't have a good game at the breakdown. He took too many chances. He was trying to make up for his drops. So I think you put a proper 8 in there. And I think you just keep the same team, injury permitting, and put a proper 8. I mean, we all want Honeycomb back, but let's say throw in Ruiz, throw in a guy who can steam into it, who's going to catch the ball, doesn't drop the ball. Ruiz has got good hands, and he can steam into it. He can break tackles, and he will take it as a personal mission to outplay Doris, like outplay him man to man. I think that's what happened. Peter Stepp outplayed his man across the board. Look at everyone, and you would say that they outplayed their man. I don't know if they'll switch anything up in terms of tactics. I would think that Rassie will want to see if it works. Perhaps the breakdown has to be accomplished differently. That's the area where I think Ireland had us. There's a way, if you play the breakdown well, you can negate a lot. And the Boks definitely had the first 40, but the scoreboard was kind of like, okay, we should be up by more.
In terms of the scrums, you just mentioned that, we outplayed everybody, but Ireland was clever at the scrums now. And the ref only caught onto it right towards the end. We didn't report that penalty try as well. I'm not that familiar with what happened there. What did you see there?
So Andrew Porter comes in with a bad rap. And so what they decided to do, this is my reading of it, is, hey, Andrew, we're going to protect you from that what we're going to do is we're going to not accept the hit. It's Loftus. They're going to be fired up. They're going to almost come too hungry and too quick. We're going to make it look like there was an early engage. It was never an early engage. It was always a refusal to accept the hit each time. But it also meant that Porter could stay square because he knew what he was doing was just not taking the hit. When it's a hit, he always angles in, and he angles in too much. His bum gets exposed, and then you just drive through. So that's what they did. And there wasn't that many scrums. And once that picture was presented of early hit, it made the ref think early hit. So I think how they avoided a real conflict, a war of annihilation, a war to the death at the scrums. They avoided until it's almost why I think the ref avoided a penalty try because she really shouldn't do probably for a scrum like that and just say that was such an overwhelming scrum, penalty try. I like it.
I thought he awarded the penalty try because they kicked the ball away.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah.
I just think it was one of those moments where it was so bad. I a number 1 versus number 2 top tier match. You never see a scrum get annihilated that way. I've never seen it. Yeah.
No, neither have I. That's why it was the scrum quake, and that's why you got 300,000 views on it.
And in the first half, actually, there were 2 scrums that were that dominant, about to be that dominant, and Ireland rescued it, or the ref called first early engage. So I think that's how they got around that. I think that's also why the emotional relief was there, because it just felt like they weren't letting us show we were better than them in a facet of the game that we're better than them in. And that's good coaching, by the way. That's exactly what you should do.
Intelligent coach. I know. That's the next thing I was going to say. Yeah. And we said it last week. Now, this is a chess game, but 2 masters of the game, and it's so clear. Little details, like not showing that you are being dominated at the scrums, for example, and making it appear like in fact you've got the upper hand, which I love. I think that's fantastic. Something that bothered me, I wanted to talk to you about. Jerry Flannery did a good job. Yeah, if anyone can, Jerry can, but our defense wasn't really all that should have been. I mean, every time they took a goal line or a 22 dropout, there were problems for us, and they scored some tries from there. 2 tries, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you can view those as first phases, so they're starter plays in a way, because you configure them the right way. You have everyone set up in their lanes. And by the way, I want to correct something I said was 33 to 46. Actually, Ireland, 53% of Irish rucks were less than 3 seconds. So to your point, that's not good D, because part of good D is spoiling the ruck, slowing the ruck, and mucking up the ball. So that's something that I think Jerry Flannery will be hot about, and will come hard this whole week and say, you didn't do your job. You promised me, sort of Rassie, you promised me you would do this or this, you didn't. On those starter plays, we'll call them from dropouts. So the box play, we'll call it at the end, that try that Conor Murray's try. So what Ireland does is they load up and they have 4 runners. They all look the same. Everyone looks like they're going to catch the ball. They don't even know themselves who's going to catch the ball. It doesn't matter, because they have lead carrier and then 4 people behind ready to take the ball. They can flip up left, up right, back left, back right. But, damn it, we've seen that play before. So that's where I think Boks would have been done in on that. Like, we've seen that. When you see the Boks coming with 4, the BOX coming with 4 possible receivers, then you just flood that system. In fact, you can tackle anyone. Tackle them without the ball. Doesn't really matter. But don't try to guess who's going to get the ball. That's the whole point of the play.
A bit of a rookie
inside and outside. Yeah. So what you should do there is they're not going to go outside again. They're not going to pull back when they run that play. They're going up the gut. So you just bring in your channel 1, 2, 3 defenders and tackle anything in a green jersey.
I want to talk to you about James Lowe, who seems to have a problem with touch lines. He doesn't like them. He doesn't like the ball going out. And it's actually made a try for them. And like I said earlier, and that cost them 2 tries. The one that he sort of, there wasn't clarity whether he actually grounded his foot in the likes, but Colby scored from that, and what a try once again from a Lekkerback. What did you call it? Unnecessarily scrum-capped Lekkerback. I like that term. But that's one thing. And that other one where Colby charged him down, why didn't he just let the ball go? I mean, it would have, gone out, and then it's probably a goal line dropout or something. I don't get why he's so actively chasing the balls when it's over the touchline.
Yeah, in my group therapy article, I made fun of him, saying that he has an unnatural or irrational abhorrence of balls going into touch. But it's not really that. James Lowe is a cowboy. James Lowe is a guy that's always trying to make a big play. If he could kick the ball, 40 meters, he has to kick 45, even if he tears a hamstring. If he could just, keep using the touchline as another defender, he wants to go for the intercept. If he could score without diving, he will instead dive, and dislocate his shoulder. He's that kind of player. You take him as he is. He's done a lot of good things for Ireland. But on any given night, and maybe it's on the road too at Loftus, maybe you tell him, just basics tonight. You'll have your shots. And guess what? There was almost a shot when he ran unopposed in that one time, disallowed. But there'll be moments anyway. You don't have to create them so much. You don't have to try to jump, out and kick the ball in and do all this thing. I think he came in with that mentality. And when Lowe has that mentality, it's hard to calm him down. We've had players like that. People say that Villy's like that and used to be like that. Maybe he's not so much anymore. where you always trying to make the miracle play instead of just doing the basic.
Something I noticed, with the flankers or the toulouses on the edges and the likes, we saw the Bulls do that against Leinster specifically. And I was wondering afterwards, how much do you think does the Boks coaches maybe communicate with the franchises, or do you think that's just maybe the two great minds came to the same conclusion?
Well, they are doing it. South African franchises are notoriously hard to manage and control, but
ego-wise.
Yeah, so the equivalent is like New Zealand. New Zealand, they have a very good idea of Crusaders and Blues still want to beat each other, but they do follow orders. And so for years you had Jerome Kano lurking in the outside channels, running like a back. Kieran Reid was really good at this too. So I kind of think of Pieter-Steph du Toit playing like a Kieran Reid role. He's very good hands. He's comfortable at full flight. He had 2 long breaks where he was waving the ball around and you didn't know what he was going to do. And he could decide at the end because he has such good hands. I think that is definitely a mainstay, and I think the Boks are going to use that. I think Sia is a mismatch. Pieter-Steph's a mismatch in the trams. They're also good on the cross kicks. You can put Pieter-Steph up there like in the World Cup. So I think that's here to stay. I want to go back also on the idea of James Lowe. I just thought of something. Hugo Keenan was out, and Hugo Keenan's a very good organizer. He's very good at telling you where you are. And sometimes you need someone telling you you're too close. Leave it. Take it. Just one word commands.
Something I picked up about the fact that Sia and Pieter-Steph were on the like you said, in the trams now, on the edges or in the middle, is that Faf was a lot more exposed. And he got tackled back a lot, and it was under a lot of pressure there. That typically there would have been less of that if they were playing close to the Lux and the Moles and the likes. What did you think of that?
I thought, to me, Faf was much more a question mark than Andre. I watched the game again, and I actually thought Andre had a good game. He just had to make his kicks. That's just okay. Rugby is always right, but I think he's wrong in this one. I think Faf struggles in a Tony Brown system. Faf was given license to be like a super back. He could just do whatever he wanted. He was anywhere he wanted. He made forays behind enemy lines. He would split defenses. He would cheat. He was like a joker back. I think the Tony Brown system requires an Aaron Smith type, like bullet, get to the ruck, and also snipe. I thought Grant Williams looked better under the system. I think it flowed better in that way. Keep you guessing. Faf's got a certain tell now. When he fades back and runs, he's still going to shovel it, but he runs towards his guys, and that cramps everything. And Tony Brown's system requires everyone to hold their lines, so you have 10-10-10, 10-10-10, and everyone, and so it's just very difficult to get there. I think Faf will have to do a lot more work on his game than anyone else if the Tony Brown system, which requires you to build 150 rucks instead of 75, if it's going to work, it's going to be on the 9.
I think Kobus Reinach, maybe that is a better option, maybe. But the thing is, they're getting too old now. They need to get the younger players into the game and into this new, pattern and everything. Because this team is quite old, let's be honest.
I think that's right. And but it's not bad news for South Africa. There's so much speed at 9. If there's any physical type that you would think opening up rugby to new cultures inside South Africa, to people that used to play soccer more than rugby, to sheer speed, I'm talking to world record Olympic speed, it would be at 9. That's, to me, it's always been, you always have the Cheslin Colby, like what if he was always a 9 instead of a wing? There's just a certain body type that can develop talent. And you look at this guy like Grant Williams, I mean, he's just got to be the quickest guy on the field. He always looks like that to me, and just in everything he does, even he's walking around, he looks quick. So I do think that's not that difficult to produce. I think Kobus Reinach's going to be quick when he's 85. He's going to be able to sprint when he's an old man. So the speed, to me, is what makes the Tony Brown attack work.
Yeah, Kobus Reinach, it's in the DNA. What did they lately said? No DNA, just RSA. But there we go. That guy's got the genes. Make no mistake. Okay, what can Ireland do you think, to actually win this game? I know altitude's out of the picture now. It's at sea level. They've been in the country for a bit. everybody's lungs are not going to be burning and the likes. It's going to be a lot closer. And Durban's typically not a good place for South Africans to go play any sport, for that matter. I saw there's a petition going around saying we must never play anything in Durban ever again, cricket or rugby. We always lose there. We, become dangerous, close to losing. What can Ireland do different, do you think?
Well, so you look at what can be fixed in a week. You have to dismiss a few things, especially personnel-wise. I mean, you cannot just create someone that's not there. So I would say set pieces where you can usually have the quickest fix. So lineouts. I thought they could probably do a little more contest on the Bok lineout. I would expect they'll put people in the air, maybe 2 towers instead of 1. To get into the shaky line-out throwing if there is one. I think more kicks over the top. Ireland kicked 21 times. They probably should have kicked more. Get a ball bouncing around, get a greasy ball going in Durban. The ruck work was fine, but probably the bench is where that fell down. So maybe you do a personnel shift on the bench. I don't know what the choices there actually. I haven't really researched what their next line would be, but that would be one. So I think line out, tactical kicking, and maybe just on the bench selection would be how. And they would say we scored enough tries. So Ireland would say we scored 3 tries. That's enough to win a test match. What about the Bok tries? That first try, I would think they're filthy about that. I would think they would go back and say, Osborne, you were sliding in the wrong part of the picture. It's like being slam dunked on. You were just, you were like nothing. Calvin Nash, where were you? There was some problems there that I think they'll also want to work out by Simon Easterby.
The interesting about that try is the fact that Curtly Arends scored it, and it was a classic Lekker try. I mean, it was still on. There was a guy right in front of him, and he just stepped him. And
what I like about it, what makes it so Lekkerback is no one touched him. So yes. The scrum cap, again, is unnecessary.
Yeah. But the point is, it's got magic powers, man. Because like you said, Asterix, African Asterix. So I think he's more of an African Asterix than anybody else. Those Lekkerbacks of ours. Magic potion in the water or something.
No, I just gave Faf that because of the hair. But I do think there was that moment where it was developing, and I literally thought, he's going to just step through that hole. And that's what he did. And that was the power of the Lekkerback, is you start to believe that stupid things will happen. But there's no way that should be scored. Like, there's just no way. And then you go, yeah, just like the World Cup try in 2019 when Cheslin Colby steps Farrell and 3 props or whatever, 2 props. Yeah. And you go, there's no space. I don't know how you got through there.
Yeah, that one try where, Colby got that one opportunity, and I thought he was going to go through, and the Ireland were just on him. He was clearly a marked guy. Now they just knew if he had so much space, they're going to lose it. He's going to be gone, and they just swamped him.
Yeah. Who was your man of the match, by the way? If you had been picking the man of the match,
Gerard Steenekamp.
Not bad. He tackled more than anyone else, actually. More than any prop. I mean, he had 35 minutes on the park, and he was very consequential. I always say that Peter Steph du Toit is the man of the match of every match, but I would actually have given it to Damien. I thought that he took Aki out of the equation, which is tough. No one else has done that in a while. I think he took it personally that everyone said Bundy Aki outplayed him, when I don't think Damien thinks that's true. I think he thought that he outplayed him. Just didn't have that try. I thought he was really good in the tackle. There was a moment where he fended Peter O'Mahony twice in one play, and it looked like he did it on purpose. Like, where are you again?
Yeah, let me give you another shove in the face. There you go. You could see Aki, how frustrated Aki was getting. Now you could see it. His whole body language was like, I can't, this is getting too much for me. No, I said Gerard Steenekamp specifically because I know the Irish were up to all kinds of tricks in the scrums and the likes, but I think he's actually quite a small guy, number one. He's not a huge guy like a Volker Low or anything like that. We always say if Volker walks into the room, the whole room goes dark because he's like an apartment building. But Gerard is more like a flanker to me. And I think he made a big difference. I liked it. The fact that he's a bull at Loftus obviously played into my sentiments there perfectly. I wanted to ask you one last question. I know I'm asking you a lot of questions today, but I defer to your superior technical knowledge here. Is this Tony Brown thing, is it the right thing for the Springboks to be doing? I mean, we're moving away from our typical South African strengths and trying to embrace something new, and it makes sense in a way. But is it the right thing for us to do?
I think it's only the right thing to do if we view it as having different speeds. We must never, ever, ever move away from the bedrock. There's a bedrock that South Africa can do better than anyone else. It's because we grew up this way. We grew up knowing that everything can kill you here. It's like every mammal, every weather pattern, every political configuration can kill you. We live a life where nothing, I always tell people I feel safe everywhere in the world doing what I do because I grew up in South Africa, so everything feels safe. I think it is just that we can, man for man, play harder than anyone else. Into brick walls, I mean harder. So that's got to stay there. I feel confident that with Jerry Flannery and Rassie Erasmus and Madiwe Stick and Don Human and then that cast of characters, that's okay. I think the Tony Brown thing is saying, but there have been a few matches in the last 3 or 4 years where we couldn't crack in the 22. In the red zone, we couldn't score. There were a few matches where it was a match where we had to outscore someone. So in this case, scored 3 tries, won. I would say that's good. Last time in Dublin, Ireland, it was 13-10 or 15-13 or something. Couldn't score, couldn't manufacture breaks, had 1 break in the whole match. Tony Brown is going to be able to create those line breaks, not just from spilled kicks or some moment of magic by Willie, but on designed starter plays. And I think that's a good thing to have. But I don't think we should fall into the candy, the sugar candy of, we have to play quick like everyone else. It's just, you saw what happened, on the James Lowe disallowed try. That's what happens is you suddenly have a ruck way over here where there's no one. There's not even anyone. He just ran up at the touchline. So,
yeah, I was asking you about that because that exposed us a lot. And there's a lot of things going on in that. I mean, as I said, that was probably the most infringements in any piece of play for the entire match because it was neck rolls and everything that could go wrong went wrong there. But luckily for us, the ref, counted in our favor. The TMOs and the rest, I see there's a lot of Irish eyes are crying about that. Your impression? I know we don't typically talk about the refs, and we never bash the refs. But do you think the home crowd played a role?
It probably did, and probably should. Home crowd's supposed to give you an edge, and it has definitely given the French an edge in the past. It's given the Irish an edge in the past in Dublin. Both teams, I'll say it this way, this is my avenue to talk about this without feeling like I'm ref bashing. Both teams agreed to a TMO intervention protocol for the series. And it was specifically said that the TMO was not as handcuffed as they are normally. So then when someone does it, it doesn't make sense for us to throw our hands up and say, oh my gosh, why is he doing that? He saw something, he said something. When they analyzed it, they saw an infraction. To me, that's kind of why they both agreed to do it. Could it go the other way in Durban? Absolutely. Absolutely. And so let's wait. Again, on all these issues of ref, let's take the bigger sample size. Let's believe in the system longer and stop trying to, be the most aggrieved nation on earth, Ireland versus South Africa. I don't want to be known in 1 versus 2 shouldn't be about whining. It should be about hell of a match. No one even came close to, a high tackle card. These were well-drilled teams on a night where they threw a lot of passes. They had a lot of action. There were a lot of tries, and yet big guys were getting low. No, I think it's fair enough. If the protocol is to make sure tries are legal, look at it.
What I appreciated after the match is that Mr. Rassie is now suddenly the diplomat, the guy who doesn't bash the refs. And the shoe was on the other foot. Jaco Paper's definitely earning his money over there, keeping Rassie in line and keeping the mouth shut.
I think he made a concerted effort, Rassie, a while back to stop it. That's as close to a proper, sincere apology as the world will ever get from him, is that he saw the error of his ways and he corrected it. And fair enough. I mean, we should move on. I think it's ridiculous when people keep bringing it up as if he invented ref bashing. There's been plenty of ref bashing before in every sport, and there will be many, in the future. He's just not part of it anymore. He's adopted more the Heineke Meyer approach, which is the ref is always right. Move on and take whatever lessons you're going to get from it in the week. Like, so in the week you go, okay, so if that's going to be the case, if they're going to straddle a ruck, plant foot behind and straddle ahead, why don't we do that? So, then you push the referee to make a decision, and it's fine. Then, in the first 5 minutes, if you think it's going to be a strict ruck in Kings Park, then you can always go back. But always test the ref. I've always said rugby is crime pardoned. Crime, pardoned. Everything we do on a rugby pitch is illegal in real life. I mean, none of this is allowed.
That's why people play it. Okay, let's say, is this on Saturday? Do you think the rectification is going to be complete? Or do you think it's going to be like kissing your sister? Ireland's going to make a comeback and this rivalry will live on for another day? I think Ireland's going to put it back.
It has to be 2-0. It has to be a wash. If there's 1-1, Ireland will get much more out of that than the Springboks. It would be a monumental, colossal failure for the Springboks to lose a test match to Ireland with Henshaw, Casey, and Sheehan knocked out of this thing. So now they're carrying, the spine of their team now is, I don't know what it is, third string. No excuses at all. This should be the bigger victory. I know Durban can play into that part, but let's get rid of all those superstitions too. It's just a pitch. The better players are on the side with the whiter jerseys. Keep the white hat on. Don't bitch and moan, and score tries. I mean, to me, Ireland is giving up tries. We see that now. We see that there can be gaps. Finish those gaps. You could get 4 tries, maybe 5.
Yeah, that's going to start becoming important in the championship. Now, having to score those 4 tries, scoring the bonus points, it makes a difference. You're right. We have to get into that mindset. That's why you're right. Rassie is going to go for it. He's not going to change anything. He's just going to see if it works. Keeps throwing mud at the wall and see what sticks. He's taking a chance doing it against Ireland, but I mean, that's the chance. That's what the cards he's been dealt. He has to do it.
It does look like Ireland's open to the break once you get to Creel. Once you get to Jesse East Channel, it looked like to me that there was gaps all day. They just tried to kill it before it got there. But I think once it got out there, when you had Creel and then you had a big and then you had a flyer, that thing, it didn't look like Ireland had a lot of answers except for desperate scramble defense, maybe a knock on or two, hope, luck, whatever. So I would think they'd go back and say, I think it was 8 breaks, maybe it was 9. You should finish 4 of those. You should score 4 tries.
All right, Daddy. That's enough rugby for one day. Enjoyed that. Thank you. We'll talk soon. I'll see you later this weekend, and you're going down to Durban for the second test.
Yes, definitely, man.
Good
times.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MW Welman.